morning, I'm Al Bledsoe, Post 1108 of Veterans of Foreign War, and we'd like to welcome you to another session of Proudly We Served. And as always, let's go around and everybody get introduced this morning, and then we'll get started right away.
Hi, I'm Ron Chappell. I'm chaplain for the local Vietnam Veterans Association 777, and co-host here with Al on Proudly We Served.
I'm Alan Paul from here in Richmond, a retired state senator, and also a veteran of Vietnam, and I'm here to talk with these gentlemen about some veterans issues.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking, guys, as we were coming in, most people know retired Senator Paul. Mm-hmm. He says he's retired. He's not really retired. No, he's not really retired. But most people know him as senator and the fine work that he's done, and we'll talk more about that. But I doubt if very many people really know the soldier. Mm-hmm. That kind of adds a lot of credibility to some of the things we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about that for a moment. Alan, tell me a little bit about your service career, your time in the service.
Well, I went in the Army in 1967 and volunteered, which was not always the smartest thing to do. But there were a lot of reasons for that, and we won't get into that. But at the time, you couldn't get jobs. I felt I might as well go on ahead and do it. But went in for 3 years. Mm-hmm. I had 1 year in Vietnam and served in the artillery and the infantry. Mm-hmm. So I had a little different outlook on things there. Yeah. And then when I did come home, I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And finished 17 months there in a headquarters company of an artillery unit again.
Now, what division were you in Nam?
I was in 1st of the 77th Artillery, which is the 1st Air Cav Division.
Oh, yeah.
And then D Company, 2nd of the 5th, and then Echo, which was a recon patrol of the 2nd of the 5th, 1st Air Cav.
Yeah. I'm a 1st Air Cav guy myself, Hey.
I've got to ask you, and we've never talked about it. We've talked about a lot of different things, but I've got to ask you, how did you get to be into being a state senator?
Yeah.
And just tell us a little bit about that.
I would say it started in college, and I was a president of a fraternity, and that was very political to get that job, and I kind of enjoyed getting it. Mm-hmm. And then I had two idols, which is kind of weird for a Republican, but John Kennedy and his brother Robert was like a baseball player to me. I mean, I really enjoyed watching him. Right. I think he probably was the best politician of the 20th century myself. But anyway, I would study them and think about this maybe in the future. Even when I was in the Army, I would write things. I followed Nixon and so on very closely. So when the opportunity kind of presented itself here, I went around and started talking to people and decided, I might just try that. I was going to run for the House first, and then decided might as well go for the Senate. It opened up kind of, and we did it, luckily.
Sure.
Yeah. Got in and served 30 years.
30 years.
Basically, 28, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you've served very well, and we've been friends for a long time.
Yes.
And just knowing that, I think veterans knowing they got a friend in the Senate or the House, Dick Ham's kind of carrying on, and without going there too much, we have to have that representation because, as you know, what we talk about on this show, the veterans and what veterans do, that's a dying thing. That's not going to continue on.
At one time, I was the only veteran in the Senate, so that's 1 out of 50.
Wow.
And there were 2 in the House out of 100. So there were 3 of us total. And so I carried all the legislation because they didn't have anybody else. It was not that I was this great person, but at least, yes, I could relate.
You could relate,
and so
sure,
the National Guard would come to me and say, can you help us out? We're trying to get dollars for this and that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of carried over, and I'm still working with them on projects for the Senate and so on.
Yeah. It makes a difference. I was at Wright Pat last week, and this major comes up to the counter, and there was an enlisted guy right there in front of him, and he bought the enlisted man breakfast. He said, we got to take care of our enlisted people. He said, I was there one time myself. So my point, he could relate,
Yes.
And that makes a big difference, and I think it lends a lot to your credibility in terms of the things that you've done to help veterans, in the state of Indiana, and it's been awesome. Let's talk about some of the major legislation that came down that you started?
Well, when I first started, I think one of the biggest pieces of legislation that I did in all those years was the education bill for the National Guard. And it was not easy because Larry Borst, a good friend of mine, but he disagreed with me on this bill. He did not want the bill. He felt it was too much money, and he wanted to inch its way in. And I worked with General Buzzkirk of the Guard, and the general was a Democrat, which was interesting. And of course, that was kind of difficult to get over. The Guard had not played ball over there for a long time, especially a general.
Okay.
But Buzz said, I'll do it. I'll put on a uniform, come down there and see what we can do. So I had him meet everyone out of the 50. I took him in the hall and made sure they all saw him, what we were working on. That night, I waited, and I've told this story before, I don't know out here, but I waited until he went to the bathroom. Larry left. I asked, pull the bill down. They pulled it down. I got up and I said, this is a good bill for education and for the Guard. We need your help. Thank you. Went and sat down. Passed, like 50-0. Well, 49-0. He wasn't there. He comes out, sits down, and he looks, and he sees. He looked back. Boy, he came back. And you know what he said to me? He did not speak to me for 6 months.
Is that right?
But we got it out, took it to the governor. The governor signed it. And every time I hear that mentioned, I just remember those little stories on how that happened for these young kids to be able to go and then go on to officer training or whatever they want to do.
Sure.
College degree.
Sure. People don't understand the situation with the Guard. I mean, they could be called up at any time, so they're given basically taking the same risk factor.
That's right.
By their joining.
Do they have the same benefits? What kind of benefits?
Not as regular Army.
No.
They don't?
No.
Oh, wow.
That's why that education
that's why
piece
the
was
education bill,
that was
the
a
regular
big
Army
piece.
already had it.
Yeah.
The reserves had it.
Yeah.
But not the Guard.
Yeah.
So they couldn't send people and get dollars for them to go.
Right.
And this really opened the door for a lot of people to get to go to college.
You were in the National Guard, weren't you?
No, Guard Reserve.
Guard Reserves.
Retired old guys. I spent a few years in there and enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it.
That's another story. But, we was talking on the last session how we've all gotten older.
Yes.
And as we get older, we tend to have different ideals sometimes in life. And sometimes we can't move from one thing to another.
That's correct.
But in my opinion, you've really stood tall in the community, and without a
thank you.
doubt, one of the
I
greatest.
don't take that lightly.
One of the greatest
You can
guys.
screw up pretty fast.
It doesn't take much. Well, one of
know that. I
one
can
of the
relate to
greatest
that.
guys I've really had the pleasure of meeting in my life. I mean,
Yeah.
just a guy that stood for something and was not afraid to say what he thought and stood fast.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Did you find a lot of resistance there in terms of your efforts to try to get things done for military service members?
And more so in the 80s. It was a little harder, and there was hardcore senators that had been there a long time and didn't like particularly new people coming in and telling them what to do. But it's a good product. And I tell them now, you have a good product. The timing is right. Get in there and fight for those dollars. People will help, and they just have to understand what the Guard does and what's expected of them,
Right.
and how they can help by voting for this thing and helping people get the dollars and it's all about money, because the money makes the thing flow.
Sure.
And down at Camp Atterbury, the building and things that have happened there is just fantastic. Now, feds are taking a lot of money back out of there now. But I was just so pleased last few years that I was in the Senate. That Camp Atterbury was a first-class place. SEALs trained there, Green Berets, all of them. It is amazing.
I didn't realize
I
that.
didn't either.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
realize
realize
all
The
that.
SEAL ranges down there are just unbelievable, where they train with the weapons they use.
Wow.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, well, especially the last several generations, don't have a clue to the value of the military and what the military provides for them in terms of securities of their freedoms. I don't know if you guys seen this latest thing on the flag where this lady was jumping up and down on the flag
Oh,
and they were
yes,
bouncing on the
yes.
flag. Man, oh well, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But
Well, we
I-
just don't.
but
Well, that's part of the conversation, though. We just don't have the respect for the red, white, and blue like we used to. I mean, to us, it's it's nothing more than a rag, if you will,
Yeah.
hanging on a flagpole.
Yep.
Just somewhere along the line, the more we get progressive in the society that we live in, the more and more dangerous it becomes.
Yeah. But that flag, you served under that flag in the military and in your responsible role as senator,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure did.
absolutely, absolutely. And so thinking about that, for the military, what were some other pieces of legislation that came about as a result of Alan Paul's involvement in the
Well,
state
I think
government?
one of them we were talking about out in the hall that I think is very important because I'm still involved with the Guard and also the Veterans Administration of Indiana, not the VA out of Washington. So there
Right.
is a difference.
Right, right.
And it's a rather small group. I think there's about 8 full-time employees, and they try to help veterans in all types of ways. But one, I had a bill that would, well, I ran the Veterans Committee of the Senate, so anything that dealt with military or funds for military would come through me. So there was a fund that many people in the audience may remember. We still have the license plates, U.S. Army or Vietnam veteran or whatever. When you buy those license plates, the veterans were aware $25 of that fee, and that may be the whole fee. It's darn close to it, I know. But anyway, $25 from the sale of that went to a fund that would be used for veterans purposes. Well, I watched that fund just keep building up, and I would always ask the head of the VA, whoever that person was, it's an appointed position by the governor. I probably went through 4 of them. And they would say, well, we're building that up so we can use it in the future for something that we really think veterans need. So, okay. The last year of Mitch's administration, I had him down there, and I asked him again, could I please have the number on that fund? And they went around the horn 3 or 4 times. I kept asking. I'd bang the gavel. I'd say, I need to know the number.
Wow.
Finally, he said, 8-point-some-odd million. And I sat there, holy Toledo, and we're not going to disperse this? And he said, no, we're trying to build it up for something that we could use later. I said, these people need help now, for heaven's sakes. Who are you saving it for?
Yeah.
So, put a bill in. We got a lot of press on it, which helped me with the governor and the administration. Sure. We sent it down to him, and he signed it. We had a big signing and everything. Okay. So what it did, it opened that monies up. And as of now, right now, we've spent $2 million, I know, so maybe there's 6-point-some-odd million in there as of today. A veteran may apply, and there's an application that you fill out, and you apply for monies from 1 to 5,000. The top is $5,000. You can ask, maybe you need 500, maybe you need 1,500. Maybe you need 3,000 to meet a payroll to start a business or whatever. It can be personal, business, or otherwise.
Wow.
So, and the way I would do it, I was telling you, I think your service officers are all aware of it in Randolph, Wayne counties. You go to them, get the numbers. They may have the application. Then that application goes to a committee made up of veterans, and then they decide whether you get it or not. I don't think they've turned many down. Now, if it's just, I need the money to go to Florida,
Yeah.
that's not going to work. But if you're starting a business, or if you're in debt let's say you've had something at the hospital, you owe money, and you want to get it paid off, you can apply and say, I'd like to have these dollars to help me.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that after you, let's say you get the 5,000, there is a period of waiting, maybe a year or so before you can apply again. So you can't turn right around and say, I need another 5. Mm-hmm. But
Wow.
that bill has made a difference, and I'm just glad I stayed on it, and they answered me. And again, it's hard to vote against the military in state government because they do so much.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not highly paid.
Right, right.
And everybody knows it. And when they come in, like these little hardship loans, why not?
Yeah,
And I think we can't go below. I think I put in there 3.5 million. In other words, you got to keep the thing current.
Right.
And keep adding to it, keep building up. Don't let it take it clear down to zero.
Right.
And then have to start all the way over again.
So now, is it a loan or a grant?
It's a grant.
It's a grant.
It's yours. Yep. It is not a loan. It does not have to be paid back.
How long does it take to get approval if you applied to have that done?
I am told weeks. I asked yesterday that, and they said usually within a month you'll know.
Wow.
So it kind of depends when you submit it, and I think they meet like maybe the 20th of every month. So once you get that down, or somebody tells you, you put it in a few weeks before, and then you get in on that cycle.
Wow.
So not very long, because that was a big thing with me, that when you need the money, you need it. You can't sit around for another 90 days and wait
Yeah.
for dollars.
Yeah. So is there a formal name for this program, or?
Not really. I don't
No?
think they ever named it. Just the license plate program, I used to call it.
Okay.
And
Well, I'm used to military. You got acronym
Yeah.
for everything. You know?
yes, if we had it, I don't remember. It was always tied to the license plates, and the people are still wanting some more. I know they wanted a Bronze Star plate, and you got to watch it because there's a lot of different plates. But in this case, it helps because the more plates we can sell, the more money we put it in.
Wow.
So,
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't, until you spoke that to me, I did not realize that was part of that you could get something like that.
Yeah.
That's really something.
But there's a lot of bills we carried, and helping with armories and repairing armories and selling armories, and they would always come and sit down, and General Armberger and Buzz Kirk, and I enjoyed all of them, and straight shooters, becoming more political because they have to. I keep banging away at them. You guys have got to get in there and let people know
Sure.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Most people have never seen a general. So when they walk in, they look back and they're kind of afraid to go up to them. And so I said, get in there and shake hands and tell them, I worked with your kids here, and we're trying to do this new program, and would appreciate your help.
Most generals were probably more sensitive than people realize. They're not just really rigid, if you will, military. They're pretty sensitive
And it's
to
changing.
needs, and it's changing more and more.
They're more like
Exactly.
a CEO of a company.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where when we were in, I only saw one the whole time I was in. I happened to see him.
Westmoreland.
No,
What's
it was
Westmoreland?
Patton.
Yeah.
Down
Patton?
at,
Okay.
down
Okay.
Patton's son. I saw him
Okay.
getting an ice cream cone once, and also met with him once when I was leaving. But that's the only one I ever saw.
Wow.
Yeah. What about jobs for veterans?
They have, we had bills that would try to create jobs. The way I tried to do it was that if I was working in a company and had to go on, let's say, to Afghanistan, that they would have my job when I returned. And that wasn't an easy bill to get through, because people say, well, I need a sandblaster or something, and he goes, I got to replace him. Then it's not fair to the guy that I replace him with, or the person that I replace him with. So, but I think that's one way, is that you don't just kick them out when they leave.
Right.
And then we have companies like Monarch Beverage over there, biggest distributor of beer and wine in the state, and one in the world. And I started a program over there they got all types of points and everything, federal points, for hiring of veterans. So a lot of their drivers that you'll see around in these white trucks, beer trucks and so on going around, many of those, I think it's 65%, driving it are veterans. So you'll see a younger guy in there,
Yeah.
and every time I see him, I think of that, because there's a veteran, I'm sure it is. So through incentives with the state, you can try to bring jobs.
Right.
Are enlistments down or up now, or where do we stand with enlisted people? Do you know?
I think it's down now.
down. Yeah.
With the feds cutting so, I know the Army is, as an example, but the Guard kind of follows along.
Sure.
And I know they're having a hard time recruiting now, because they've been deployed so many times that they find it hard to convince people to come in if you might go 3 times to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And then the real problems are, many of them when they come home, mental problems, divorces, suicides.
Yeah.
It is staggering what's happening.
Yeah.
And they claim they don't have the resources or the doctors nor the money to deal with it. So I think in the next few years we may be dealing with some of that with them. It's trying to give a little more support once they get home, because And of course, once they're discharged, it's over. And I think there needs to be kind of a phase out type where they can phase them out. When we were in, they just dropped us off, and that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Saigon one day, and the next day you're in Richmond.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
You know, buses and smell of perfume
Yeah,
and everything,
yeah,
and you just walk around and mercy.
Well, back in the day, you might say, war was not a popular thing. Vietnam, especially, was not a popular thing.
Right.
But nowadays, with Afghanistan, Iraq, that becomes a popular item. But it seems like to me, and I watch a lot of television, unfortunately, but it seems like to me that we're going away from really doing much to help the military. You see, once in a while, you hear, well, we got that VA thing corrected in Phoenix. They don't talk about anything else. They just say, we got the problem corrected. Well, that's just part of the problem. But you don't see as much activity with military that you used to. On TV, it used to be, they always had the generals on there or somebody on there talking. But we've compromised so much that we have nothing left.
Yes.
I mean, it's...
And if it doesn't affect you personally, with family or close friends, it just doesn't get there.
Right.
I would go to a ball game, baseball game and stuff and watch people. There's no feeling about what's going on over there, honestly.
You're right.
Because it doesn't mean anything. You go to Kroger and nobody's talking about those wars.
Yeah.
But if your son or daughter's over there, now it's different. It's a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
But what really bothers me, and I said at that book signing, is that we don't seem to learn from history, meaning America. We're doing the same thing we did in Vietnam. We're pulling out.
Yeah.
We're just going to hand it to them, leave all our stuff
Come on
there,
now.
and walk
Yeah.
away.
All right, then you.
It makes me so mad. And
See?
if I had lost a family member there, boy, would I be hot. In other words, like in Iraq, same villages gone back again.
Yeah.
And people died there from
Yeah.
that, and it's not even discussed.
Yeah.
It's just ISIS comes in and burns it and kills it.
See, I believe, I really, boy, if I had the power and authority to do it, before you could become president of the United States, you must have had served in the military.
And
Be
most
careful,
did.
that might be radical. That might be radical.
I'm just saying. How are you going to command something you don't have any understanding of what it's all about and what's needed and the strategy that's necessary to deploy and utilize those forces? We gave up a lot.
Gave up a lot, and you see in the 60s and so on, most of those people served. The Kennedys, you just go down the list, Lyndon Johnson, Nixon, all of them had been military.
Sure.
And then you fall into now new presidents that have had no military.
No military.
I don't know how you would do it, honestly, because he doesn't know what a brigade is, or he may not know what a battalion is, because he didn't study it. It's not important.
He doesn't know.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem, that a general would have a hard time explaining to a president, whoever that person is.
Whoever.
But if they haven't been in, it'd be pretty difficult. You'd have to take a crash course on military. I would
Right, and folks need to understand that the military is the main stabilizing force for this country to exist. The main stabilizing force. Without it, we're done. We're done. And good evidence of that is what happened here the other day, and ISIS is taking credit for that shooting that just occurred today. So they're on territory already and operating. And who has the responsibility for identifying and eradicating that element? The military.
That's right.
So I think that when we see things like this happening, maybe folk will be more compelled to be more supportive
Well, I think
of
that's
the military.
I don't want to sound stupid, but I think it's just nobody cares.
Well, they better care.
Well, I mean, I totally agree. But what I'm saying is that the country as a whole, do we really care? Do we really care what happens, what ISIS does overseas? That's another story for another day, probably. But at the
I'm
same
gonna
time,
hear
we
though.
probably don't. Yeah, I know.
What's ISIS doing here?
I know. But do we
Well,
really
I think
care?
if you probably today, just go over here and walk around at IU or Ivy Tech.
Sure.
And ask them if they know anything about the Texas thing that happened on this weekend.
Yeah.
I bet you would find most don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Again, they're tied up with their classes. They're doing their own
Sure.
thing. There's no way to force people to really study that.
Yeah.
Where ISIS is.
Right.
See, they're coming. They're all working in that
That's
direction.
right. That's right.
They're studying us. We're not studying them.
That's
Sure.
right. That's right.
And that's where the military comes in, because I hope we are our infantry units and so on are getting used to their tactics.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we did for NARM. You know, we trained and learned jungle warfare tactics and
Charlie.
all that.
Went
Yeah,
up to Charlie.
that's
Sir
right.
Charles.
That's right. Well, listen, we're getting short on time. Let's talk a little bit about the Memorial Day, please.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Well, we were talking in the hall again. Memorial Day has kind of fallen by the wayside in a way. Only 500 race always, people put that together. Picnics, beginning of the summer season. But in reality, it's to honor war dead. And also, in later years, it became like a decoration day. And people would decorate the graves of their relatives.
Right.
And so I hope the tradition keeps going. But it is getting less just because our generation's phasing away. And our parents did it. And I would hope this year we have a good one. It looks like the weather's going to be good. And that end of the month looks pretty good. They were showing today. So I hope everybody gets out. And not just a holiday to have a cookout, but it really means something.
Right.
Maybe say an extra prayer or go to the parent's grave. I always do that and put a flower on it. Remember a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes we forget those people that sacrificed everything.
Yes.
Sacrificed their life for this country.
Yeah, that's right.
My. That's just, to me, that's, Memorial Day is a big thing because we honor those that have really given everything.
Right.
And that's really something. So the boys are waving the flag
Yeah,
at
it's
us.
time
so
for us to go.
It's time
Yeah.
to come to an end of this
Man, this
session.
went
but,
fast.
I want to
Wow.
thank Alan very much
Yes,
for coming.
yes,
I
thank
enjoyed
you.
Really
it.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah,
This has
absolutely.
been
Get him
interesting
back,
and,
yeah.
And I hope they follow through with those calls to
That's
those guys.
exactly right.
Oh, is there a phone number?
No,
Or they can
don't
just call
have
the
it.
local
The
veteran
local-
service officer?
Yes,
Veteran
call the
service.
local.
Pete McDaniels here in Wayne County.
With that, we'll see you later.